And welcome to the first session, interactive session that we're doing with Start Your Term with GC students. It's called Be a Star. My name is Priyanka Sharma. My pronouns are she, her, and I am a senior HR advisor at the Immigrations, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada. And I'm also the co-chair for GC students. So I'm super happy to be here with you today. Apologies for the technical difficulties. We gotta love technology sometimes. So we'll get right into it. I am joining you today from the National Capital Region, which is the traditional and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. I encourage you in turn to think about the presence of the Indigenous peoples past and present who call these lands home. The GC Students Network collaborates with the Federal Youth Network. It's our sister network. And we're proud to welcome you to this session, which will teach you about the STAR method and how to use it when applying for opportunities or doing interviews. Just for your awareness, this session is delivered in English. There is a French session that is also being hosted at the same time. Therefore, if you would like to attend the French session, we recommend you go back to the lobby and join the French session. I'm joined here today with Justine Reynolds. I will give her a few seconds or a minute or so to introduce herself before we get into our presentation today.
Awesome. Thank you, Priyanka. Lovely to see all the great students we have with us today. Apologies again for the technical glitches. We're going to sort that out on our end, but makes it fun to start the day. So thanks for your patience. I'm Justine. I'm with the Federal Youth Network. Work very closely with GC students. As Priyanka mentioned, they're a sister network. I've been with Finn on the team since September, but before that, I had involvement with them on a volunteer basis. So hopefully you can learn about some of the volunteer opportunities through myself and Priyanka or at other sessions that you will attend. So I'm primarily responsible for events and partnerships. I'm often the one who speaks to stakeholders and other communities, other GC communities within the government and even further beyond. I'm happy to be here with you today. And I also just wanted to share that I lead the interdepartmental mentorship community of practice. So happy to talk to you at some point on mentorship. Thank you all for being here and taking your career into your own hands. I'll let Priyanka get us started.
For sure. Okay, so we will go to the next slide. Perfect. Okay, so before we get started into the actual content, we wanted to ask you all a question, and that is, on a scale of 1 to 5, how well do you know the STAR method? So a poll should pop up on your screen, and you should be able to rate how well you know the STAR method, or if you've heard about it, if you know nothing about it, and that's totally okay. We're here to tell you about it and teach you some tips and tricks. So we'll leave the poll up there for a few seconds. I know that throughout my career, so far, I've used the STAR method quite a bit. It's just a very good way to kind of start applying. Okay, so I see here, we're kind of ranged out a little bit. So we'll go through a lot of what the STAR method is today. We'll give you a few examples to kind of so that you can familiarize yourself with the STAR method. So let's get into the actual content. Okay, so we can go through the objectives. So today we're here to learn how to structure responses using the situation, task, action, and result framework. We're going to learn how to understand and apply the STAR method to real life scenarios relevant to your experience. And we're hoping that you'll gain some confidence in utilizing this method for effective communication. So we'll go to the next slide. What is the STAR method? So the STAR method is a powerful technique designed to help you answer questions from interviews, or in our case, screening questions in the government. If you've applied to a job on jobs.gc.ca, you know that you have to go through a whole bunch of screening questions before you could potentially move on to the next step. So the STAR method is often used to answer those questions effectively. STAR stands for situation, task, action, and result. So the STAR method provides a really structured way to answer the questions to ensure that you've covered all the relevant aspects of your experience that you're sharing. It helps you communicate your success clearly and concisely, making it easier for either the interviewer to understand your contributions or the person reading the answers you've written for your screening questions. By using this method, you can effectively showcase your problem-solving skills and achievements in a compelling narrative. So we'll go to the next slide. So we have a little quiz for you. And again, a little screen is going to pop up on to your page, and it'll ask you a question. The question is, can you tell us what STAR stands for? Is it A, situation type, action response, B, statement testimony action result, or C, situation task action result? Okay. All right. I'll let you take a second to answer that. All right. Okay. Well, the answer is now up on your screen. So the correct answer is C. It is situation, task, action, result. And as we go through this presentation and this session, you'll understand better how to use those specific sections of the STAR method. I will now pass it over to Justine to go over a few tips and tricks for the STAR method.
Awesome. Thanks. So let's really get into it and figure out what STAR means. Some of you have probably heard this term before, but we're hoping to help you really delve into it and understand it. It definitely takes a lot of practice. It may seem easy and obvious at first, but it definitely takes a lot of practice. Can tell you that from experience and our experience going through some processes. So let's delve into it and help share some tips and tricks on how to succeed with the STAR method. So first, understanding what it actually means is obviously going to be helpful. So let's look at that. So situation, it means describing the context within which you performed a task or faced a challenge. So describing the situation at hand. Then T for task, explain the actual task or challenge that was involved. So really setting the stage for the interviewer or interviewees as to what you were doing and what challenge was presented to you. And then action. So detail the specific actions you took to address the task or challenge. So go through step 1 to 4, whatever it might be, the specific actions in detail as to what you did in that specific situation. And then we have to share the results. You want to summarize what had happened. So share the outcome of results of your actions. So there's situation, task, action, and result. We'll give you a bit more tips. We have a few to share with you. So one of them is choosing relevant stories. So make sure that when you're posed with the question, you come up with a relevant question that meets the needs of the question. You want to make sure it's relevant to the question that's being posed. So you want to make sure that it's a work-related question, not something that happened maybe with your friend on the weekend, right? So select examples that are directly relevant to the job you're applying for. Tailor your stories to highlight skills and experiences that align with the job description. Look for keywords if possible. Next tip is being specific and concise. Provide enough detail to give the interviewer a clear picture, but avoid unnecessary information. So you don't want to drag on about information that's not relevant, it might lose their focus or lose their attention. So make sure to give a clear picture and stick with what you're trying to convey. Stick to the key points that showcase your skills and achievements. Next tip is quantify your results. Whenever possible, use numbers to demonstrate the impact of your actions. So if you're talking about an event, you could say we had 400 attendees, that type of thing. For example, mention percentage improvements or cost savings, time reductions, or other measurable outcomes. Next tip is highlighting your role. So you really want to describe what your role was in the situation and not necessarily the team, right? Oftentimes we say we, which is great. It shows we have a team attitude and we're working together as a team. But with an interview, you really want to showcase what you did so that they know you're responsible for those actions and it wasn't a team effort. So make sure to use I instead of we. Practice common questions. So prepare STAR responses for common behavioral interview questions, such as handling conflict, working under pressure, leading a team, or solving a problem. So practice. It's always a tip that we'll give, but making sure to have the questions written out, read them through a few times so that it's second nature for you. Another tip that's always stuck with me that was really useful that relates to this is write things down as you do them. And if you think, hey, that could be really good for an interview question or interview response, write it down so you don't forget. Also write down things as you do them so that you can use them in your interviews and not have to just think about it all as you're preparing a couple nights before, the day before. You want to have them handy so that it's top of mind for you when you're practicing. Okay, a couple more. Reflect on lessons learned. So conclude your STAR story by briefly mentioning what you learned from the experience and how it has prepared you for future challenges. So always good to take a step back, analyze, and showcase that you have learned from this situation. Sometimes we go through a lot of challenging things in the work environment and you want to show that you've learned from it and you've built upon it. Keep it professional. Always important to do so. So focus on professional situations rather than personal anecdotes, unless the latter directly relate to the job and demonstrate relevant skills or qualities. So sometimes as a new employee, as a student, you may not have tons of relevant work experience. So feel free to use other examples from school, from your personal life, from volunteer opportunities that fit the description of what you're asking. And that's totally fair and understandable to do so, as long as you're able to adequately share that you've addressed the question and that you meet the qualification for that situation. The last one, stay positive. So as I mentioned a couple of seconds ago, there's often challenging situations that we're going to face in the work atmosphere, in the work environment. So even if it was a negative situation, you went through something not so positive, try and turn a positive light on it. So even though I faced this and these were the consequences, this is what I learned from it. This is how it's made me become a better person and a better employee. And I'm happy to share that with others around me. All right. Hopefully we gave you lots of information there. So we're going to move on to a situation, and we'll go through this a bit together. So the first step in the STAR method is to describe the situation or context. So let's delve into the first step of the STAR method. The objective is to provide detailed description of the situation to set the stage for your story. So a few details you could mention that are where you were working, describe the department, the agency, what your role was, any relevant background information that helps to frame the situation. So usually more details are better, but don't need to go on about anything that's not relevant. The purpose is to ensure the interviewer or evaluator fully understands the scenario before you dive into the specifics of the task, action, and result. The clearer your description, the easier it is for the interviewer to follow your story. So you want to make sure that they know exactly what you're referring to. So quick example, at my previous job as a customer service representative, we had a client who was unhappy with a late delivery. Now they clearly have an idea of what the environment and the setup is. Explanation would be, this example sets up a clear context, indicating your role, the issue at hand, and the setting in which occurred. Properly setting the scene is crucial for making your story relatable and understandable. It provides the foundation for explaining your task, actions, and the resulting outcomes. So a well-described situation will set the stage and have them really understand where you're at so that they can understand. All right, we'll move on to the next step in the STAR method. Priyanka, over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Justine. Okay, so the next step in the STAR method is to outline the task or the challenge you are facing. The objective is to clearly define what you were responsible for or what the problem you needed to solve was. Some details to provide are describe the specific challenge, the goals, or responsibility you had in that particular situation. For example, you could say something like, my task was to address the client's concerns and find a solution that would satisfy them. This example clearly states what needed to be accomplished, setting the stage for the explanation for explaining your actions in the next step. Clearly specifying the tasks helps highlight the importance of your role and the challenges that you faced. So it comes back to that tip that Justine gave, which is you want to make sure you're using that I statement. It really tells the story on how you contributed. Always make sure your task is specific and directly related to the situation you've described. We'll go on to the third step, which is the action. So the third step in the STAR method is to explain the actions you took to address the task or challenge. The objective of explaining the action is to provide details on what you did to handle the task or challenge. You can include details such as steps that you took, the strategies that you implemented, decisions that you made, and you want to make sure, again, that you're emphasizing that I statement clearly so that it demonstrates your initiative and responsibilities. For example, you could use a statement such as, I listened to the client's complaints, apologized for the inconvenience, and offered an expedited shipping options for the next order. This example outlines specific actions that you took, showing a proactive solution-oriented approach. Detailing your actions with I statements helps to clearly convey your role and contributions. It demonstrates your problem-solving skills and abilities to take initiative. So always be specific about your actions to highlight your individual contributions and impacts. Last step. So it's called results. You're making sure that you're explaining the impact of your action. So in order to share your results, you can start by describing the positive outcomes and any improvements that resulted from your efforts. Sometimes you can use metrics or specific data to quantify your results if possible. As quantified results can provide concrete evidence to your success. So for example, you can say something like the client appreciated the effort, stayed with our company, and increased their order frequency by 20%. This example shows a clear and positive outcome supported by a specific metric. That, not to say that every single time you share a result, it has to have a metric in it, but a metric can definitely be extremely helpful in proving the success of your actions. Sharing the results effectively wraps up your story. So demonstrating tangible impact that you had from your actions. Quantifying results adds credibility and demonstrates the value of your contributions. So always aim to share specific, quantifiable results to showcase the effectiveness of your actions. So we've gone through the definition of the STAR method, so situation, task, action, result, and today's session is an interactive session. So we have a few poll/quiz questions, if you want to call them. We have two scenarios in today's session. So we'll go through the scenario, and then we will pop up the polls on the screen. So I'll actually, yes, go back to that slide. That's perfect. I'll read out the scenario, and then we'll go through the questions to really understand how to identify what the situation, task, action, result is of this particular scenario. Keeping in mind that when you do a screening question or an interview, you're using your own experiences to build these scenarios, and you're using relevant experiences. So if you're applying for a human resources opportunity, you want to make sure that the experiences that you're sharing are related to the competencies that are being asked for. And so these are just purely examples that we'll kind of take apart and try to understand better how to apply this method. So I'll read out the scenario, and it says, you work as a Service Canada representative at a busy service center. One day, a client comes in very upset about their application for employment insurance, in other words, EI, and has been and their request was delayed. They are under significant financial stress and need the benefits to support their family. Your manager is currently unavailable, so you need to handle the situation on your own. So we've provided some examples of what the situation can be. There are 3 options here on how you can describe the situation. The first option is a client called the support line. So that's option A. Option B is you're a Service Canada representative and an upset client needs their EI benefits processed urgently. And the third option is you are working on a benefits report. Okay, we'll give it a few seconds for everyone to respond to the poll. Okay, I think everyone's responded. All right, so the correct answer is B. And Justine, I will let you take over because I think I took your role. So I will let you explain why
That's
the answer
okay.
is B.
No worries. Yeah, so everyone got it right. We got 94% at selection B. So good job, everyone. This is why it's B, because it accurately describes the context of the scenario. I think Priyanka already mentioned that. You are in this situation, you are a Service Canada representative dealing with a client who urgently needs their EI benefits due to significant financial stress. So they're under a lot of pressure. They've reached out for support. The option sets the scene by explaining your role and the client's immediate concern, which is essential for understanding the situation you faced. So good job. Let's move on to the next one. I'm going to stop sharing that one. And we can move on to the next scenario.
Okay, so now we're going to identify the task. So there'll be another poll that pops up on your screen. Cool. Okay, so now we want to identify what the task could be. So the options are A, you needed to assist other clients. B, you needed to find a quick and satisfactory resolution to the client's problem to ensure they receive their benefits. Or C, the client wanted a refund. So which one is it? So which one describes what you have to do in terms of your next steps? What were your tasks? Okay, well, I see a lot of answers.
Perfect. Everyone seems to be bang on again. 99% got B, so that's fun. Good job, everyone. Obviously, you all know the answer, so that's great. It's because it clearly defines your main responsibility in the scenario and explains what you had to do to fix the issue at hand, right? Your task was to address the client's urgent need and find a way to expedite their EI benefits. So this clearly shows that this was the task you had to overcome. Okay, now on to the action. So there, sorry, you can see the results up there. It was just delayed a little bit. There we go. So moving on to the action. Option A, you listen to the client's complaint, apologize for the inconvenience, checked their application status, and expedited their application. Option B, you called the benefits office. Option C, you ignored the client. Let's get your answers in. Perfect. All right. let's
Looking
share
good
the
so
results.
far. Okay, I see so, and this time we got 100% correct. So the correct option was A, you listened to the client's complaints, apologized for the inconvenience, checked their application status, and expedited their application. And the reason for which the answer is A is because it outlines a series of proactive and constructive steps you took to resolve the issue. So you list by listening to the client and apologizing, it shows these skills. And this comprehensive action plan shows how you handled the situation effectively on your own. So well done. And now we will identify the result.
Perfect. So the result, option A, the client left the center. Option B, the client appreciated your help, received their benefits within 2 days, and left the service center satisfied. That's a pretty good result. The issue is escalated to the manager. That also happens a lot, right? So
Yes.
have to expect some challenging situations sometimes. We'll let you get your answers in for that one. All right, results are in.
Awesome. So the correct answer is B. 99% of individuals responded correctly, and that's great. But sometimes we do escalate to the manager. In this case, we're showcasing results that we obtained. So more proactive, positive response that we can provide in our STAR method, and therefore the reason for which the answer is B is because it describes a successful outcome. The client's appreciation and the timely receipt of their benefits highlights the effectiveness of your actions. And this result underscores the impact of your efforts and the client's satisfaction, which are crucial elements of a successful STAR response. So I know that it seems that these answers are quite easy, but I think that what this highlights is that when you're providing these examples, you're providing details that support yourself when you're providing those that the information about your experiences and the competencies that you have. So making sure that when you're writing your response or you're speaking about your responses in an interview, you are using those details to describe the situation, the action, the task, the result. For example, in terms of the results here, it very well could be that the issue was escalated to the manager, and that's not an uncommon situation that occurs. So not to say that option C is an absolutely wrong answer. It can definitely be one, but you want to make sure you add in pieces on how you might have bettered the situation for the client before you escalated it to the manager. So maybe if it is a difficult situation, you're explaining why it was difficult, how you dealt with those difficulties, how you supported the client to make them feel comforted that their situation will be resolved, and then mentioning that due to the difficulties of the situation, it was escalated to the manager. So that's just kind of the distinguishing factor between all of the responses that you provided, and you all did a great job. So we're going to go into our second scenario, and it's the last scenario for today. To really see if we could have solidified the use of the STAR method. So I'll pass it over to Justine to read the scenario.
Perfect. So here we go. You are a senior research coordinator at the NRC, the National Research Council Canada. You have been assigned to lead a high priority research initiative aimed at developing a new technology to reduce carbon emissions. The initiative is part of Canada's broader strategy to combat climate change and has a strict deadline due to upcoming international environmental agreements. You must coordinate efforts across various research teams manage a significant budget, and ensure the project meets all scientific and regulatory standards. That's a lot for one person. Hopefully you're not doing that as your first job.
Can you imagine?
So let's identify the situation in this scenario. So option A, conducting routine lab experiments. Option B, leading a high priority research initiative to develop technology to reduce carbon emissions with a strict deadline. Option C, attending a research symposium. You can submit your answers.
Awesome. So when responding to this question, which I see everyone is doing very well, it's important to remember that you want to provide details. So even if it is that you are conducting routine lab experiments, you want to describe what type of routine lab experiments are you conducting? What does that mean for the problem or the situation that you need to resolve or action? So making sure those details are there. And I can see that everyone, almost everyone selected response B, and that's correct because it accurately describes the context of the scenario. So you provided those details. You are leading a crucial research project, which is aimed to develop technology. You've provided enough information for the person who's evaluating you to really understand what the situation is. So great job, everybody. We will now move on to identifying the task.
All right, so identifying the task. Option A, write a research paper. Option B, coordinate efforts across research teams, manage the budget, and ensure compliance with scientific and regulatory standards to meet international agreements. Option C, conduct a survey on lab safety. Submit your answers.
Everyone is doing so well. Awesome. So that's correct. The answer is B because it clearly defines your primary responsibilities in the scenario. So when we talked about identifying the tasks, it really sets you up for the next step when you're supposed to be providing details on the actions you took. So providing as much detail as possible on the task at hand really will support you throughout the STAR method for a particular example. So you want to make sure that it's directly related to the project that you highlighted in the situation. You also want to make sure that all the actions you take kind of are related to the competencies that are being looked for in the application or the interview that you are being evaluated in. So let's move on to identifying the action.
Identifying the action, the third step in the STAR method. Option A, you organized interdisciplinary meetings, allocated resources efficiently, oversaw the development process, ensured compliance with regulations, and engaged with stakeholders to keep them informed. Option B, you focused on internal teams without broader coordination. Option C, you delayed critical project milestones to gather additional data. Everyone's entering their answers. Looking great.
Everyone's going so fast. So I feel like we've done a great job explaining what the STAR method is. Or maybe next time we make the questions a little more difficult.
The thing is, though, when you're in the situation, when you're in the interview, sometimes things are more challenging or you have a hard time thinking of those scenarios. You have a hard time thinking clearly when you're feeling flustered in front of a group of 4 people, right? So it's good to be quick on your feet and feel very confident with it before going in. So the fact that you guys are all doing really well is a good indication.
Amazing. And I think, Justine, you said a great thing about being prepared and flustered because we said practice, practice, practice at the beginning. And I think that that's a key piece to making sure that you can provide concrete and concise examples for an interview or a screening question information. There are so many tips and tricks on the Federal Youth Network's wiki page or the YouTube page on how to take interviews. So just kind of taking what you've learned today and then going to the Federal Youth Network's page to learn more about how to prepare yourself for an interview can really set you up for success. So you're all doing amazing and you all got the answer correct. It is A. And the reason for which it is A is because it outlines a comprehensive set of actions that demonstrate effective leadership and project management. So in this response, we're highlighting two key competencies, which is leadership and project management. And that could be something that's super, super helpful for you when you're deciding what examples to take out of your day-to-day, even if it's from school or from an experience you had during your co-op or your FSWEP. Taking anything that can relate to a specific competency and making sure those actions really demonstrate that are super, super helpful when developing these examples. So we'll move on to the last part of the STAR method, and it'll be the last question that we ask in terms of a quiz format. So it's really identifying the result.
Right. So of course we want to share what the great outcome was, or what the outcome was, whether it be great or not, but how you can share the results of what you went through. So option A, the project failed to meet its objectives. Option B, the initiative was completed on time, met all the scientific and regulatory standards, and received international recognition for contributing to carbon emissions reduction. Option C, the initiative was scrapped due to budget overruns. What is the correct answer in this scenario?
That's and I think that it's so interesting to see. Yes, we've provided, and everyone's doing great in answering this question. It is we'll launch the solution in a second. But really the results could be any of these, and it's okay to, we always say choose positive. So we said stay positive, choose positive examples where they can really highlight what you've contributed in a positive way, quantifying them. But that's not to say that, there aren't projects that have difficulties in them. And if you did want to say that there were difficulties, but this is how we overcame them, just ensuring that you're providing those details in the results, in the actions, and how you problem solved. Again, problem solved is a key competency that can be looked for in specific evaluations. So making sure that you're providing those examples will be extremely crucial in these STAR methods, because it really will show your skill set to the evaluator. So the correct answer is B. And I think the reason for which it's B in this scenario is because it highlights a successful outcome. It demonstrates the impact of your actions. And by completing the initiative on time and meeting all the standards, you're showing your, that you're able to project manage. And again, that was a key piece that we mentioned in the action portion of this example. So coming back to kind of making sure the result is summarizing all the efforts it took to by addressing the situation, the tasks that were at hand, and the actions that you took is a great way to kind of end off your story. And I like to look at the STAR method as a storytelling. You're taking an example that you experienced, whether it be in your school experience or in a student job experience, and you're using that to tell your story to make somebody else understand why you meet those competencies and provide those key details that they need to really understand that this is your skill set. And a lot of the time as a student, we hesitate because we're like, oh, can we take school examples to provide those in screening questions and to provide them in an interview? And absolutely you can, because all you need to do from your end is look at the experiences that you've had in school, whether it's a team project or a solo project, and take the situation, task, action, result of each of those things and try to tie them into the key competencies that are addressed in a job posting or an interview that you might be being evaluated for. A lot of the time, those key competencies are highlighted. So in a sense, it can make it a little bit easier for you to make those connections. For example, in a school project, that's a lot of teamwork, and that is a competency that is looked for. And a lot of the time in an interview, you might be asked a question about teamwork. So taking that school experience and forming it into the STAR method to provide that explanation will be extremely beneficial to you in making sure your story comes across and sharing your successes. So well done to everybody here on applying the STAR method. I hope that this concise, small, interactive session provided you with the information that you were looking for. We're going to pass it over to Justine to do one final poll. It's not a quiz, I promise. And we'll let Justine read out the question.
Perfect. So just a simple check-in to see how well you feel you have learned the STAR method today on a scale from 1 to 5. And it seems obvious, you all did fantastic, but it's really putting that into practice and actually being able to do that on the fly when you're in the interview, right? So just want to remind you all to keep note of the great things you're accomplishing in your work terms or in your postings, whatever you're doing. Take notes as you accomplish something. It'll make you feel good about doing it, and it'll be so much easier when it comes time to prepare for your next interview. It's also a good tip for resumes too. Write down what you're doing. An easy thing, whether you want to do it on paper or somewhere where you're going to keep it with you electronically, write it down, just easy, and it'll make your life easier in the long run.
Yes. And sorry, I wanted to jump in there because I could just think of, and we're almost done, I promise. One last thought that I had was, and not only is this going to be beneficial for you when you start your career, it's going to be beneficial for you throughout your career. Not only do we use concise ways of communication when we're trying to do evaluations and interviews, we also use it when we talk to senior executives. You have to be top down, and this is a great way to make sure you learn how to use your experiences and examples and make them into a concise format. So yeah, that's great. I think the results are amazing. So wonderful.
Great. I'm going to end the poll there. So a huge thank you to all of you for being here. We really appreciate your time, and we really respect you for taking the time out of your day to build your career and help yourself. So we hope that you continue doing that. GC Students offers amazing resources on their wiki page and does several sessions and informal and more formal throughout the year. So take advantage of the resources that are available to you through GC Students and Finn as well. So you can check out our wiki page. I believe there'll be a follow-up email sent to you with some of these resources. Perfect. So take a look at that, and you can always reach out to GC Students or Finn at any point. We love to hear feedback from you as to what could make these sessions better, what you need in your career. We're always looking for advice on what can help you most. So we're here for you, and let us know if there's anything that we can do for you. Best of luck in all your processes and in your careers, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Absolutely. And in the next 15 minutes, we'll be starting how to leverage social media. So a nice 15-minute break, and we'll be back at 2.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Priyanka.
Thanks. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone.